It's WST Sunday Live, hosted by Hrabchak, Lyss, Houde, and Jacob Stoller.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome into another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name's Hrabchak. I'm joined today, as always, by Lyss, Houde, and Jacob Stoller. And we have another jam-packed show. I say this every single week, but this week it's actually true. We have a game to talk about from Friday night. Jets with a big 6-1 win over the Devils. And Friday was the trade deadline as well. So the Jets pick up Brandon Tanev from the Seattle Kraken, a reunion from the 2017-18 playoff run. And then Luke Schenn from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who never played a game for the Penguins, really from the Nashville Predators, and the Penguins flipped them. So we're going to discuss those additions, the additions the Jets didn't make. We're going to get to trending up, trending down, and our burning questions and all of that stuff. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, on Daylight Savings Sunday. You all lost an hour of sleep last night, and you're still here with us at 9 a.m. on a Sunday. We really appreciate it. Lyss, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, and you say jam-packed show because it's always a jam-packed show. I saw Jacob yesterday, and we were chatting a little bit about some of the topics we're going to bring up. We could fill, I don't even know how many hours worth of content just talking about the Jets. So it will always be a jam-packed show. We can promise you that, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Exactly. Jacob, how you doing this morning?
Doing great. Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Let's get right into it. I'm going to start with mentioning the fact that I am in a hotel room doing this like Kenny and Rennie style from the road down in Grand Forks. I actually
You're in Carolina?
Yeah, I'm on the road. I got to run the morning skate. No, I'm kidding. I'm in Grand Forks. I was at the UND Fighting Hawks game last night. It had been over a decade since I'd been to the Ralph Engelstad Arena, and it's as awesome as I remember it. So that was fun. And then I got the hotel breakfast, which is always so nostalgic. I don't know about you guys, but like driving down to Grand Forks and getting like the eggs, like we all know what the eggs are like. We all know what the orange juice is like, you know, like it just reminds me of my minor hockey days, coming down here with a team and just loading up on these scrambled eggs that they just keep bringing out. I don't know. That's just very, very nostalgic to me, is to come down to Grand Forks and have these crappy hotel breakfasts. Anyways, let's get on with the Winnipeg Jets coming up with a huge 3-1 win. And I tweeted it out after the game. I don't think there was a better time for the Jets to remind people that they were a really good team, given the discourse coming out of trade deadline day.
6-1?
What? Did I say 5-1?
You said 3-1.
I said 3-1? It was 6-1.
Or am I crazy?
Double that. I thought I said 6-1. Anyways, it was 6-1. Yes. Okay.
Weigh in.
It was 6-1.
6-1.
Can you guys hear me? Like, what is going on? What is going on? Yeah, like, is my mic on?
I think that hour of sleep is like killing me, but you're totally right. Go on.
Okay. Well,
6-1.
Yes, 6-1. I did say 3-1. Okay, people in the chat saying I said 3-1. My bad. It was 6-1. I don't know. Again, maybe the hour of sleep is affecting me as well. Anyways, I don't think the Jets could have picked a better time to remind people that they're a really good team coming out of the trade deadline and all the discourse that we're going to get into later on. But just absolutely smacked the New Jersey Devils. That game wasn't close. It was a little close in the third period, maybe. What were your thoughts on the game, Lyss? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think not to be the Debbie Downer, the negative, whatever. I think that it was good in the sense of a lot of people were probably going into yesterday or Friday's game, feeling a little bit underwhelmed, not super enthused, but the direction of the Jets based on how that day had gone and everything like that, which I think people are entitled to feel that way. And while I do think it was a good reminder that this is an excellent hockey team, I think at this point, we're well aware that they can win regular season hockey games. This is the team that has a sizable lead in the West and first in the league and everything like that. So I think, if anyone who is a Jets fan is kind of using that game as a gotcha moment for folks who are not super pleased with how the deadline day went. I would hold your horses on that just a scooch, but it was nice to see, power play goals from down the lineup, everything like that. It was a fun game. Gotta say that Adam Lowry goal, that was pretty gross. If you ask me, that was a real fun one, real nice shot. And I think it was really nice to see a little bit of the Boo Birds come out for a really nice performance from the Winnipeg Jets on the eve of Jonathan Kovacevic's 5-year extension. So it was a fun game.
Yeah, it was the second night of a back-to-back for the Jets, and it didn't really look like it. Like, they looked like the faster team. I know New Jersey had probably a big emotional letdown losing Jack Hughes for the season, and that was, I think, their first game without him or their second game without him. So yeah, it was really tough for them. And Simone Nemec, who we had Jeff Merrick on, and this reminded me. Simone Nemec reminded me because we brought up Cole Perfetti with Jeff Merrick, and he said you can pout, you can stomp, you can call your agent 8 times a day and complain about the fact that you're in the AHL. That's what Simon Nemec has done, at least from an outsider's perspective. And now that he's in the NHL, he's just turning the puck over like constantly and getting scored on every time he's on the ice. So I don't know, maybe New Jersey could use someone to block him. I know they've blocked him and he's pouted about it, but really tough game from him as from someone on the Jets side of things looking at it. Jacob, what did you think of that game Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty focused on the deadline, to be honest with you. Look, I think that what I liked was that Tanev really brought that FU attitude that I think he's going to bring, and I think that was awesome to see in spurts. I'm with Lyss. I'm not going to make big proclamations off of one game. I think that it's a bigger picture you have to look at. And, Scar Neal said it's not an arms race. Sorry, Scar Neal said it's an arms race out there, which obviously it is. Chevy and his thing was like, well, it's not an arms race. And I don't mean to be nitpicky, but it's just like, I don't care if it makes you uncomfortable, but that is what this is. This is an arms race, so the Jets did add a couple revolvers, but, other teams had some machine guns. I don't even know. I'm not a gun person. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of an analogy, guys. When I said ammo, but I'm not a gun person. But I just think that, to be honest with you, it's like a lot of the time I was thinking, like, what would Brock Nelson look like in this lineup? I'll be honest, still on my mind. And yeah, I don't know. I'm very not concerned with that one game. Not to be a Debbie Downer here, I just don't really care about it. I think that we're game 61 or whatever, or 64 of 82. This team's got a massive lead in the division. They've gone on incredible streaks, but you're kind of at that point now where it's like, okay, but like, what are you going to do in the playoffs? And I know that sounds really pessimistic and short-sighted. I just think that at least this market has every right to be there at this point. I don't think that's ridiculous at all.
No, I don't think that's ridiculous either. But at the same time, there is a little bit of like, because of what Colorado and Dallas did in the division, you got to get the 1 seed. Like, there is something to play for down the stretch here. It's not just like, let's fast forward to.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's
that I agree with. That I agree with completely.
They got to get the 1 seed.
Mean, that's true. I'm going back to what Lyss said before, where it's like, we know this team can win regular season games. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, what I think or what I don't about the team as a whole, or like even if they do lock up the 1 seed, guys, the playoffs is different hockey. So
for sure,
that's just where I'm at on like seeing a New Jersey 6-1 game. That's why it's hard for me to look at the bigger picture of it. And while there is a bigger picture, I'm just trying to say, I think when you look at the Jets season the next however long, I want to know how their depth does in certain situations. You don't want to see an injury ever, but you almost want to see how some depth guys step up in bigger roles just to see what they have there. Those are the kind of things I also think are important down the stretch. But yeah, the one takeaway is the FU attitude with Tanev for sure.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go next. But first, we got a super chat from Michael, my guy Michael. $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Said Logan Stanley still being a Jet is costly, in my opinion. We are going to discuss that when we get into the trade deadline. But we appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Tons of super chats coming in this week on the WST channel. So I just want to thank everyone because it was the 1000th show on Wednesday. It was their 4-year anniversary yesterday on March 8th. So a huge week for Winnipeg Sports Talk. And thank you everyone for all the super chats this week, and Michael for this one. We really appreciate it. That new look fourth line is where I want to go. And Jay Miller brought it up. He likes that new look fourth line. Brandon Tanev, Morgan Barron slides to the middle, and Alex Iafallo on the other wing. Lyss, what did you think of that new look fourth line that I think can be defined by just having a ton of energy, at least with Tanev?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know how good Alex Iafallo can be for this Winnipeg Jets team. And that's a guy that, like, if you want to talk about playoff depth or whatever, like having a guy like that on your fourth line, this is a guy that on the Winnipeg Jets of old would have been on the second line, right? Like that shows some incredible depth in the forward group of this team, which is awesome. Morgan Barron sliding to the middle was interesting to me. This is a team I feel like that often talks about the value of face-offs and all these sorts of things, and they move a winger to the center. And I know Kupari is hurt right now with some head stuff, I believe is my understanding, and Gustafsson healthy scratch, two guys who are our natural centers. And yeah, sliding in Brandon Tanev there, I think we know that this is a guy who can roll with this team. I've always liked Brandon Tanev. We'll get into the actual trade acquisition, I'm sure, but like if you want to talk about a fourth line that's more serviceable than, you know, Nick Shore, Gabriel Bork, and Nate Thompson, like I'm here for this fourth line. And I think that they had a nice game yesterday, kind of getting in people's faces. And no, the Winnipeg Jets don't necessarily have Matthew Tkachuk and Brad Marchand to irritate the rest of the league. But like, I think there's some potential for that line to go out there and have a greater impact than maybe some other fourth lines.
Agreed. Jacob, what did you think of the fourth line?
Yeah, I totally agree with Lyss there. I think that if you could have that fourth line be a line that isn't just like right now, or sorry, back up. Before the deadline, the Iafallo, Gustafsson / Kupari, Barron line had some great shifts. And like they were fantastic at points. But as much as they were able to go, like when they had a good game, to me, it was like, wow, that was a good bit of forechecking or a lot of good Ozo time. And this new line will do that as well. But I think that this new line can also lay a guy out and just change the course of the game with Tanev there. I think that there's a lot more there that can tilt the favor of the game. And I love what Lyss said about, it may not be Brad Marchand or Tkachuk, but, you know, he's a new version of the Bash Brothers kind of for the Jets. And I think that's annoying to play against. A guy Iafallo isn't as physical really at all as Tanev, but like, man, when he strips the puck off you, that's very frustrating. Tanev is a possessed demon sometimes when he's forechecking. Like, it's going to be annoying. I like what Lyss said, though, about Morgan Barron. I'm just kind of really curious. You know, I'm just trying to look it up here quickly, what his faceoffs were there, because like Morgan Barron is a natural centerman. Gustafsson hasn't been all that good. Okay, we went 5 for 9 draws, pretty good. Gustafsson hasn't been all that good on draws. So to me, it's like, first of all, Barron's in the lineup before Gustafsson any day. Kupari is a speed, but like, can they? I think Morgan Barron's to be part of this line. Like, I think he'll be the centerman. What do you guys think?
I kind of agree with what both of you are saying, and I think this line has more of an identity than the previous fourth line did. Like, Jacob, you brought up the Iafallo, Kupari, Barron. Like, Kupari's a speedster. Not like had some spurts of really good forechecking. Iafallo, we know, is a great forechecker. Morgan Barron is good along the walls, good down low, possessing the puck. Kupari's good in transition. Like, there was just a lot of different skill sets at play. These are 3 players.
Flavors. They all brought different things.
It was like fine. These are clearly the 9th through 12th best guys on this team that you kind of just tossed together.
Yeah, for sure.
And these 3 players are going to dump the puck in and run through your face. And that, like, the fourth line is good for that. Like, Brandon Tanev, a lot of people are saying like they remember the energy and they saw it on like the first couple of shifts. I was the same way. I was sitting there like, man, this is the exact Brandon Tanev I remember. It's just like super frantic, super fast, just in on every forecheck. There was like his first shift of the game. The puck got dumped behind the net. Jacob Markstrom went to go play the puck and Tanev like slashed his stick. Like usually goaltenders get that puck, they rim it before anyone even gets close to him. Brandon Tanev flew down the ice, got right on the goalie and slashed Markstrom's stick and almost forced a turnover. And that line scored in the first period as well, off of like a cycle and a forecheck and Alex Iafallo getting a goal. So I don't know. You said last week, Lyss, that one of the best things I think the Jets could get at the deadline this year is an unhinged Alex Iafallo. well, what if they get 2 with an unhinged Alex Iafallo and then Brandon Tanev, who's an unhinged Alex Iafallo, right? So I don't know. I think that could be really valuable. And we have another super chat coming in here. Darth Skater, thank you so much. Always a loyal listener of WST Sunday Live, is always here early. Thank you so much. $5 super chat. Tanev is truly in his happy place. Anyone else thinks he signs a team-friendly deal? That is another thing. He's a pending UFA, so we'll see if his deal comes up and he remains with the Winnipeg Jets, because they did trade a 2027 second-round pick for him. Anything else on the game specifically, the power play, the penalty kill, anything else you guys want to touch on before we move on to our grand trade deadline discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think just super brief from me. Last Sunday, we sat and had a conversation about the Winnipeg Jets power play, and I think there's no gotcha moment to be had here. We know that this team has a good power play, and we just knew that they needed to get the monkey off their back and pot a couple. They have indeed done that. 3 power play goals, I believe it is, in the last 4 in the last 2 games, 3 at least in the last 2 games. 4, yeah, in the last 2 games against the Flyers and the Devils in the back-to-back nonetheless, which is awesome to see. A couple different goal scorers. Really, really nice to see that kind of back up in action. I was talking to Jacob yesterday, and this is not important. I'm just going to derail for a second. We're talking about special teams as a whole, because we were at the Moose game yesterday, and 2 fights in the first 10 minutes of that game, and just a ridiculous amount of, 4-on-4 power plays, penalties. Like, the amount of penalties that occur at the AHL level is nuts. And it's like, wow, you just watch special teams. You want to talk about moments versus sample, Connor. This is an inside joke that we got going on. Special teams are just an unbelievable part of hockey, and they have such an ability to impact a game in such an acute way, in unlike basically anything else. And we talked about this for all of last year. It's so funny. I was going through the archives of some of my old content that I was making, and it was like a running bit that it was like, I can't believe I have to watch the Winnipeg Jets go on a power play. It's like, can we decline a power play? All these sorts of things. And it's crazy how the growth of that special teams unit, and the penalty kill was so bad for years too, has been synonymous with the growth of this team in terms of points percentage and standings.
Yeah, and I think the penalty kill is a good place to kind of take that, because I think both of these additions that the Jets made are clearly looking to fit that need. It is funny that you bring that up, Lyss. Last year, we were joking about the Jets declining power plays, like late in games too. It'd be like 2-2 with 5 minutes left. And it's like, no, we don't want this.
Please don't.
How things have changed. And man, the number one thing, I don't know if you guys get asked this as well, but from like people who follow the Jets, they're like, well, what's so different about this year than last year? The first thing that comes out of my mouth is the power play. Like, this team having the power play go from 22nd to over 32% and by far first in the NHL is just such an unbelievable weapon that they'll have over any team in the first round. Any team in the first round right now, as it stands, they'll go in with the better power play and the better goaltender. And that's a pretty good recipe in the playoffs. I mean, 5-on-5 play is obviously very important, that the majority of the game is played at 5-on-5, and the Jets are no slouch at 5-on-5, but having both of those is just so solid. And it's the reason that the Jets are number 1 in the league. We're going to hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff first before we give our thoughts on the trade deadline additions of Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn. Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke to reporters in New Jersey before the game against the Devils right after the deadline. Here's what he had to say on the acquisitions of Tanev and Schenn and what those 2 players bring to this Winnipeg Jets team today.
Well, I think we gave ourselves a little bit of a different dimension on the back end, from a hardness perspective, a penalty kill perspective, I think leadership perspective. I think we, really got a lot in acquiring, Luke, and then, Tanev. It's always good to bring a guy back home, and he was a big part of what we had going there when we went to deep into the playoffs, and the experience that he had with this group, and he's just that much more experienced as a player now. Speed galore, tenacity, penalty killing. A guy that. It won't take long for him to be familiar back with, with all the players again, and that's a real added benefit.
So there's Kevin Cheveldayoff on the additions of Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev. And before we discuss whether or not the Jets did enough at the deadline, because we have some clips from Cheveldayoff on that note as well. He talked about Brock Nelson, he talked about keeping his first-round pick, all of those things. Let's talk about these deals in a vacuum. And Jacob, I thought your piece laid it out well. And the first part of it, we will get to later with, did the Jets do enough? But then you talked about how you liked these deals in a vacuum, and they do fill needs for the Winnipeg Jets. So maybe just expand on your piece that people can read at sportsnet.ca on the trade deadline and what you thought of the Tanev and Schenn additions.
Yeah, I think that it's clear that as much as I think that Tanev and Schenn were two guys they were really eyeing for depth additions. Yeah. But you look at the team right now, and they ended deadline day with $6 million in change. And that's exactly what Brock Nelson's AAV would have been. I believe wholeheartedly that was plan A.
I think so too. Yeah.
Like I have some I know from other teams in the league that, like, first of all, Cheveldayoff was extremely active this year and always is relatively active. I think that it's funny. Like, we always talk about GMs like, oh yeah, he's kind of quiet this year, he's active. Like, there's so much legwork done for the deadline that no one's truly quiet. You're not doing your job as GM if you are. But I do think that this year, Chevy said it was a different year than years past. What I can say from understanding people in the industry is that I do think there was a lot of they talk about like people being available then maybe not and stuff. It's like, okay, so they kind of have that situation with Nelson, right? Where it seemed like so first off, they're outbid. Okay, like that. Yes, that is
Cal Ritchie in a first and a third, I believe it was. Yeah, that's a huge haul for a rental if Nelson doesn't resign.
Jets couldn't have bid with that. But there was right down to a day before, we didn't know what Lou was going to do with Brock Nelson, right? So there was that posturing there. Cheveldayoff has to look at his backup plans. And I do believe that one of the plans, I don't know how serious he was, but they were interested in Lawton and Ristolainen respectively. I don't think they loved the price, which I understand. But I'm told that they were having discussions with Briere leading up to it, but it always seemed under the guise of like Danny B probably was thinking, when or if they strike out with Nelson, come here and then pay my price. I'm not budging.
Right.
Toronto paid it. The Jets didn't. But here's the interesting thing as well to note. In years past, leading up to the deadline, there's usually 2 or 3 players that become available because their team went from a mushy middle team to a seller. We do not see that this year. Everyone that went, exception of Brad Marchand, even though we kind of had that speculated, almost everyone that went, sorry, my chair keeps falling down. Everyone that went was speculated to leave, and this was a seller's market. So I think Cheveldayoff, the second he loses Brock Nelson on deadline day, he doesn't have time to spend that $6 million in cap space wisely. I wrote about before the deadline, using that cap space to broker picks to get more assets if you're not going to use it. I still stand by that. But he only had, 5 hours to do that? And how many we saw 0 brokered deals on deadline day. Those were all done before, right? So it's not like there was any opportunities he missed out on, presumably. And to me, if you aren't liking what you see out there, why are you trading a first-round pick? Like, guys, if they traded a first for Scott Lawton, oh my God, and a prospect, that would have been ridiculous. Especially when Brian Tanev's a better fit for that fourth line. Like, I'm sorry, but I just, you got to spend wisely. It's a disappointment. And I wrote this in my piece. There's no way around it. Like, it sucks they didn't get Brock Nelson because Brock Nelson then went to Colorado. That's a gut punch. Mikko Rantanen, back from the East on his little, rendezvous. He's not going to torch the Jets for 8 years. This sucks for the Jets. No way around it. And I think that when you look at the deadline, you can't blame anybody. I think they just swung. Like I said to Lyss in the car, they struck out swinging. They swung this deadline 100%. But they struck out. And it just so happens that the other guys in their divisions hit home runs. And that's where it's unfortunate, I think, when you look at the deadline, because I'm very aware that no cup team in the recent years has made massive deadline splashes. But I do think you have to adapt or die. And I think that when teams are getting better around you, you have to take note of that. And Cheveldayoff did. Like, he was intent on, no matter how others were doing, he was intent on improving his team. It just didn't work out. And it still sucks. Like, you can have room for both guys. You can have room for, I do believe Cheveldayoff did everything he could to make this team a better hockey team. I truly do. I don't think he was being frugal by any means.
Yeah.
But by circumstances that were in his control, they struck out.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that by saying on WST, on our massive trade deadline show, thanks for everyone who showed up. We had over 1,000 people for like the entire show. It was awesome. The immediate reaction. So I think at like 3:30 or 2:30, I guess, my immediate reaction was like, how do they still have their 2025 first round pick? And I still share that sentiment a little bit. Like, I agree with you, Jacob, that I think Cheveldayoff did everything he could. And we even have a clip here that maybe I'll get to in a second here before Lyss's thoughts of him saying, like, kind of tongue in cheek, but like, I tried like heck to give my first round pick away. And I don't know, like, I believe him on that front, but what is a 2025 first round pick good for this window? It's not. You can still use that in the offseason. If you draft it, say the Jets win a round or two, that pick is going to be in the late 20s. If the Jets win 3 rounds, it'll be in the early 30s. That pick, if they make the NHL, which is a coin flip in the first place, by the time they make an impact, that'll be like Connor Hellebuyck will be 36, 37 years old and his contract will be coming up. Like, this player won't be playing until 2029, 2030 at the earliest, given the history we've seen with the Winnipeg Jets. But at the same time, I can admit that I do believe that Cheveldayoff did everything. They had an offer with that pick in it for Nelson. They got outbid. Rumors are saying, or Frank Saravalli, I believe, said that Nelson blocked a trade to Winnipeg or didn't want to get traded to Winnipeg or Canada in general. So that's like Chevy's hands are tied right there too. Like, I don't know. There's a lot here. And Lyss, before we get to your thoughts, I want to get this in from Chevy because this is on specifically Murat Atesh from The Athletic asked him, this is the year you kept your first round pick. Like, of all the years to do it, almost, Cape. Those aren't Murat's exact words. Those are my words. Of all the years to do it, this is the year you kept your first. What was that all about? Here's what Cheveldayoff said.
How do you balance the quality and the desire to add and the fact that there's some cap space maybe unused with the fact that also the prices were what they were?
Well, you know what, prices really didn't factor into any of our decisions as far as acquiring or not acquiring players. Like, that wasn't, that wasn't a factor. We weren't going in saying we weren't going to do this, we weren't going to do that, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. Like, we were prepared and ready to do whatever it took to, if there was fits. But once there's not a fit, then, you have to, be judicious and try to do things that you do think help your lineup.
You held on to your firsts this time around.
I tried like heck not to. No, again, every deadline's different, and sometimes again. Were there teams asking for first, even in situations that we got right now? Sure, if there's a pressure point that a team, can be buckled under, you're always asking.
So there's Kevin Cheveldayoff on keeping the first round pick. Said he tried like heck not to, and then went on to say, there's maybe even some situations where teams are asking for a first and the Jets kind of weren't comfortable to go there. Maybe a Scott Lawton reference, who knows? But Lyss, your thoughts on the additions, the deadline in general, and Cheveldayoff's thoughts right there.
I have a lot of thoughts in particular. I think, you guys have nailed a lot of what you've said. So to maybe add some other thoughts, it's good to hear that was something that he was willing and able to do, because I think there are a lot of folks who were saying exactly what you said, Connor, where it's like, this is a team that won't rebuild, right? They need to hang on to assets and all that sort of stuff. He knows that not only is this going to be a late first rounder, it's not going to be someone who's adding to the lineup until, like you said, later. And also, this draft class is not super exciting. A late first round draft pick this year is not the equivalent of a late first round draft pick some other years. And I'm not holding out hope that whoever the Winnipeg Jets draft in the first round with this year, with this pick that they kept, is going to become the next pillar of the franchise. Maybe I'll be wrong. I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again.
Watch, they will. They will. The player that they draft in the late 20s, because we're having this conversation, is going to be the next Mark Scheifele. Like, he's going to pass Scheifele on the... Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome. I did that for you. Then you're welcome. But I think the other thing is we are a good group to sit here and be like, let's unpack all of the nuance to this situation. And there's so much more that we can dive into with this that we haven't yet, and we won't even probably get to in the next 30 minutes of this show. But I do think there is sometimes an element also of just, at the end of the day, did this team get better to the degree that they needed to in order to compete in this window that they want to compete in? And the answer to me is no. Specifically because of what the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars did, I think that this is a team that needed to do more. Money was left on the table, picks were left on the table, and I believe you 100%. And if Kevin Cheveldayoff was also dangling the first in those, like you said, 5 hours or whatever he had after the Brock Nelson trade went through, and it was clear that that wasn't going to happen anymore, I am not mad, right? Like, I do believe there's an element of like hands were tied, did all he could, whatever. But if the team didn't get better to the degree that they needed to, and they're a second round exit, and all these guys are, declining and the window is closing, whatever, like, I think people are allowed to be upset with that. I really do. I really think that, ends and means are a little bit different. And you could say, yeah, like the means, people tried to do X, Y, Z, but if the team isn't good enough, the team isn't good enough. And that is what matters at the end of the day. It's kind of like, the whole expected goals versus actual goals or whatever. It's like, hey, if a guy, even if he's not supposed to, if he's scoring 10 goals in the games that you needed him to, can't say much about that. Right. So I think that it's one of these things where I believe with my whole chest that people can feel however they want about the trade deadline. I think if you're sitting here being like, how dare you be disappointed? That's not fair. And I think if you're sitting there being like, how dare people be okay with this because they think this group can go far, I also don't think that's fair. I think people are allowed to kind of feel however they want about this particular deadline. Last thing I'll say just before we get into more stuff about it. I thought it was a super fun deadline, though, just across the board, across 32 teams. I thought it was really fun. Lots of guys on the move, lots of fun deals. Love the Rantanen deal. I love a guy getting double flipped like that. I love, a couple of the 3-team trades that we saw. Kyle Dubas, I thought, had a great deadline. I think a couple of teams had a really fun. So it was a good couple days.
I thought I texted you guys. Sorry, Jacob, just one second.
No,
I texted
you
guys.
No.
Yeah. I texted you guys the night before saying I think the Rantanen thing is all fake. Like,
yeah, dude,
Carolina's just. I was like, Carolina's just gonna keep him. Like, this is all just manufactured like drama to like hype up the trade deadline. No, it was real, and he's back in the division to the Dallas Stars. Yeah. Oh yeah, that one stings. But yeah, it was a really fun deadline. I mean, Brad Marchand getting traded was I did not expect that one, especially since I thought he would
in the 11th hour too. It was like, whoa,
right at the end, right at the buzzer. Yeah, that was wild.
Can I hop in a bit on what Lyss said? So those are all great points. I think the one thing I'm going to say is everyone has the right to feel what they feel. And right now, it's very fair to be emotional. I think that people in the Jets organization are emotional with how this went. Scouts that done legwork, people that have, I don't think that they envision this playing out this way particularly a couple months ago. But I do wonder close to the deadline if they thought this might happen, just given how the market was. One thing I want to note too, though, is there was a comment in the chat I saw recently that was really good. They can still trade that first at the draft. Like, guys, you can't. Everyone can feel what they feel right now, but let's not forget too that once this season ends, and if the Jets don't win the Stanley Cup, and we start talking about next year, they might have a top 6 forward spot to fill, and Nikolai Ehlers leaving. They may need to trade for someone. Okay, they need ammo. So if we have the conversation in a year and we say the Jets trade a first and Colby Barlow for Scott Lawton, and then they couldn't go get a second line player on the trade market with that first round pick, are we really saying they really have to move that first round pick right then and then? And I think that everyone's saying, myself included, because I'm hearing it from people that are seeing it on TV and stuff, that the 2025 draft is not very good. I think that's more so a matter of the top isn't as defined. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like
the top looks good. The top is good. It's the depth of the draft that's rough.
I know, but like this is such maybe a Lyss-esque take of just like one of my theories. But like, when have you found a draft where it's like draft your X? Like, yeah, there was no players that they found in the later rounds. I don't buy it. Like,
that's super fair.
Like, so maybe I don't know how to pinpoint it. My point being is a first round pick is a first round pick. Yeah, it's probably going to be the latest one. So let's say it's an early second, still an asset. So I think that the Jets holding on to is important because as much as this is the Jets window, this is their year, and I've been very much on that train, they're still next year, guys. And it's going to suck a lot more if they've got nothing in the barrel like, can you imagine if this team gets bounced? I don't want to go trigger anyone. I'm not going to say first round. Let's say they lose in the second round. Okay. Stings. A bit of progress, but like a lot like kind of left on the table. They go to the war room. They don't have any picks to trade. They have no seconds, no fourths already. And then they have no firsts. Like, guys, like then we're having a whole different conversation about asset management, yada, yada, yada. I think what Chevy said was so true. Like, you can't just give up a first to fill a small hole just to give it up. Like, you still
For the sake
go
of
to the
giving it
grocery
up,
store with $50 in your budget, and then nothing there you like, but it's like, oh, I have $50 left. Like, I can't walk out of here at $50. I gotta buy so much more steak, even though I have it all in my freezer at home.
Well,
So-
Jacob, I think it's a good point that you bring that up. And we had this conversation yesterday that I think is super valid, where you bring up the whole idea of, you go into the war room and you say, okay, Nikolai Ehlers is gone, or whatever, if you want to go down that road. Like, what do we do? They look at the options of trading guys, whatever. It's a very different situation than Julian Breezewell has in Tampa Bay, where it's like, we also have this secret third thing of we can sign whoever we want for free. And so that is something that I do believe that, you're one of 32 NHL teams. You got to play hardball the way that everybody else is. I get that. But every situation has unique intricacies and stuff like that we can't forget. And I don't like, I always make this joke that I'm not too far one side, not too far on the other side. Like, I'm the only person who's exactly correct and accurate in my opinion on things. But I do believe that, we have to operate under the guise that players are interested in coming to Winnipeg, especially on the trade market as a pending UFA, if a team is going to possibly make a playoff run this year or whatever. But there's a huge difference between a guy coming in for 3 months and renting an Airbnb versus buying a house and signing an 8-year deal here, a 7-year deal here, right? Like, I think it's important to acknowledge that it is a little bit of a different situation. I don't think that absolves the team of responsibility to go out and be competitive. Don't twist my words in that capacity. I do believe that there needs to be pushes, but those assets, I think, mean a little bit more because they may be leveraged to bring in guys in the offseason more so than other teams who have the luxury of being able to go out and sign guys.
I will say on that point, Lyss, I will say, though, on your point of, it's different attracting players in the offseason and signing them to 8-year deals versus trading for a pending UFA. A pending UFA and Brock Nelson reportedly blocked a trade to come here, and the Jets got outbid. So it's like, I share that sentiment with you, where it's like people look at no trade clauses and it's like, okay, if they're a pending UFA, they don't care. They're going from Buffalo to Winnipeg or whatever, like, it's not. They're going from Buffalo to Winnipeg. They're going from one of the worst teams in the league to one of the best. They're going from San Jose to Winnipeg for 3 months to try and win a Stanley Cup. Like, they're not gonna care. Yeah. Guys with term, it's a valid thing. I think we've talked enough about, like, the temperature of the trade deadline around the Winnipeg Jets. Let's focus on the players that they actually did bring in and what they'll bring to this lineup. Brandon Tanev comes in for a 2027 second round pick. Luke Schenn comes in for a 2026 second round pick and a 2027 fourth round pick. What did you guys think of the additions that the Jets did make and how they're shaping up going into the playoffs with this current roster? Lyss, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Brandon Tanev one, I won't say too much on that because I do think that we spoke well to that already in terms of what I think he can bring to the roster and stuff like that. I think, the question is still in terms of more of that middle six configuration. I'd be interested. I hope over the next few games they try some different combos out. We tried this whole Lowry Ehlers thing a little bit because I think the internal upgrades and everything is kind of, it's the only option for every team at this point. So it'll be interesting. Mm-hmm. But I do think Brandon Tanev brings a little bit of versatility to that forward group, and he's exactly what we said he is. You know exactly what you're getting with Brandon Tanev. The tenacious is the exact right word, right? That's the word that Kevin Cheveldayoff used, and that's the word that everyone should use in describing that player. I think he's tons of fun. And we saw last year that, bringing in guys who maybe aren't an exact perfect fit for this group doesn't necessarily have the outcome that you want it to, even if the player has some good potential. This is a guy who's played here. This is a guy who, was a bit of a story in terms of being an undrafted guy signing his first pro contract with the Winnipeg Jets. I'm sure he has a place here that he was able to go slide right back into. This is a guy who I think really enjoyed his time in Winnipeg. So that one is sure. I like the move. And we talked about this, we talk about them in a vacuum. I like it as a depth add for the Winnipeg Jets forward group. I really do. Luke Schenn. Interesting. This is another guy who is a classic Winnipeg Jets deadline buy in the sense of has a little bit of extra term. They don't always make the splash on the pending UFAs, the Brock Nelsons, for lack of better terms, of the market, right? The number one name on the trade board, the same way they did about Sean Monahan last year. This is a little bit more of a Nino Niederreiter acquisition where people were like, oh, interesting. However, I will say, when the Pittsburgh Penguins traded for him earlier, people were like, okay, he's going to get flipped again. So It wasn't like overly surprising to me that the Winnipeg Jets acquired Luke Schenn. But I think it is interesting that they acquired a right-handed defenseman. I really do think it is interesting, because if they had acquired a Rasmus Ristolainen right-shot defenseman who is a higher up in the lineup guy or whatever, I would say, okay, it's very clear that the plan here is to take some of the load off of Dylan DeMello or whatever you want to say. This is an interesting one to me that, you bring in a right-handed guy, and it begs some more Logan Stanley questions, that's for sure. So I can't say that I'm, a Luke Schenn expert by any means, but I'm very interested to see how and when he draws into the lineup. Is this like a Jordy Ben situation where, he comes in and actually is just kind of hanging out and only plays a couple games? Or is this a guy or a Colin Miller situation that's a better, more recent example, right? Where, he brought in at the deadline, but then proceeds to not play a ton after the deadline. I'm really not sure where this one's going to go, but the fact that it's a guy with an extra year makes me think that they do see some potential with him slotting in somewhere and making an impact immediately in the top six defenseman, and not so much as just like a locker room depth, whatever kind of guy. So yeah, that's kind of my TLDR. It was still too long, but my brief thoughts on kind of the two guys that the Winnipeg Jets did manage to bring in.
For sure. And you brought up the Logan Stanley questions there. I definitely have the inside track on you, Jacob, to win our bet of who plays game one of the playoffs. Because I don't know, some people are just coping online saying like they're going to put Colin Miller on his offside. Like that's not going to happen. That I don't know. I can't see that happening. Like it's going to be Schenn and Stanley on the third pair, and that's who they're going to roll with. Because Stanley,
maybe.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if Schenn surpasses Miller. I think we still
really okay.
I don't know. Like I mean that in the sense of like Luke Schenn right now. I think this is a character ad that they hope can bring us. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw in the playoffs, say Schenn starts or Miller starts, something happens and the other one swaps out because of a very like stylistic preference, I guess. I worry about a Stanley Schenn pairing. How is that team going to break out of the zone? Like, that's my worry there. I think Schenn above all is a locker room ad. Like, I think that what he does bring, the physicality, ability to clear out the net front, is important and something the Jets do want. But I think that they spent that premium for a player that has a year remaining because of the character and the things he brings off the ice as well.
Interesting. I think he's going to go right into the lineup. I
really do. I think he'll go right in. I just don't know if he'll play for sure over Miller in the playoffs.
Maybe. I do think like Miller doesn't kill penalties, I don't believe. And Schenn would. And Schen's more physical. And I think these are all things that the Jets value in a depth role.
Fair.
Over Colin Miller's like blast slap shot from the point,
Yeah.
There's some people bringing up in chat how that third line, their foot speed. And I think that's the third defense pairing, and their foot speed. That's my number one concern. How are they A, going to break out the puck, Jacob? I agree with you. But B, how are they going to defend in transition? You're on the road against the Colorado Avalanche in the second round. You can't hide. You're on the road against the Dallas Stars in the second round. You can't hide. Like Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Wyatt Johnston, Matt Duchene, Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson. These guys are on the ice for the other team. So there's no hiding in transition. There's no hiding in the defensive zone. It's going to be really interesting how that
it's both, right? Because it's managing the rush, but also creating the rush. And that's the Winnipeg Jets are just not that good at that, right? And then so guys who struggle even more so than the team as a whole do, I could really see that getting exposed against the guys that you just mentioned. And holy smokes, I think I just got I need like an Advil now or something. You just started naming those guys and it's like, holy smokes. Like, yeah, the Dallas Stars top 9 in particular. Jeez Louise, like, come on, you need some solutions for that. But I do like the idea of like, just there's a stylistic difference between a guy like Luke Schenn and Colin Miller. And I like, we talked about how the Winnipeg Jets didn't adapt enough last year in the first round against the Colorado Avalanche. Maybe that gives you some versatility to adapt. Maybe you find that you're not doing XYZ, and the solution to that is therefore playing this guy. And maybe if it's, you're not doing ABC, the solution is playing the other guy, right? Like there's some different tools in the toolkit, for lack of better terms. It brings in a little bit of a different guy that you can put, it's kind of like the whole Chisholm, Heinola, whatever thing that you want to say. Like it's a guy who fills a similar type of role. These guys fill different roles. So maybe there's some potential there for that to be leveraged depending on the situation the Winnipeg Jets find themselves in.
For sure. And the opponent they're playing and all the things of that nature. I agree with you there, Lyss. One last thing. I didn't share my thoughts, or my one final thought, on Brandon Tanev. Lyss, you have brought up this take to me about how there are players that are kind of better in the moment. It's hard to explain in a short
For context,
synopsis.
everybody, it took me about 2 hours to explain this this theory of an idea to Connor at Winnipeg Sports Talk whiskey tasting, but eventually, hours later, he got my point and now believes my point. So just saying.
The take is like, certain players are really effective in a certain moment or a certain situation, but over a large sample, they might not be. Like, you might not choose that player over the large sample over a different player. Am I kind of getting there, Lyss? Just start shaking.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is, where it's like, a huge face-off or a huge block on a penalty kill can change a game, can change a whatever. But if that player over the course of 82 games, over the course of however long, has a negative impact, it's like, what do you value more is kind of the argument.
So here's my thing with Brandon Tanev. I spent all day Friday and the whole game Friday night trying to get my thoughts in order for today's episode. And I was looking at all of the JFresh cards, all of the evolving hockey cards, all the analytics around Brandon Tanev. And I'm like, what is going on? Right? Like, I just don't see how this guy's an upgrade over a Morgan Barron or a Rasmus Kupari or whatever. Then I watched Jets at Devils, and Brandon Tanev was on a flight at 2 p.m. and playing at 6 p.m. A guy took a half-hearted swipe at Connor Hrabchak, and he tackled him and chirped him all the way to the bench. And it was like, I want to run through a wall for Brandon Tanev now. It's like it almost, that stuff doesn't show up in the JFresh cards and the analytics. I'm like, he's a really effective forechecker, really effective penalty killer. Is he going to be, the best finisher ever? Not quite. Is he going to, be Connor McDavid in transition, posterizing Dallas Stars defenders? Absolutely not. But if you want a guy that's going to lay his life on the line, both on the penalty kill, after the whistle, everything for this team, Brandon Tanev's going to do it. And in a depth role, I think that's fine. And Stan Scott here saying he is a total playoff guy. I agree. Like, I could see Brandon Tanev just like getting under the skin of everyone on the opposition's team in the playoffs, and like running through the boards, trying to hit a guy, and Canada Life Center, the whiteout, going nuts. Like, these moments, I think, are valuable to a playoff team. I think standing up for your teammates is valuable to this Winnipeg Jets team. They talk about it all the time when Lowry or Stanley or whoever stands up for someone after taking a dirty hit. Brandon Tanev is going to stand up. And like I said, he was on a flight at 2, on the ice at 6. A guy took a swipe at Connor Hrabchak and he tackled him and chirped him all the way to the bench. The refs had to push him onto the bench. Like, all right, let's go. Like, get this over with, because he had the crazy eyes going. He was chirping. It was great. It was great. And his teammates definitely want to run through a wall for him after doing that. So I don't know. Brandon Tanev over a large sample. You look at the analytics, you look at the JFresh card, you look at his raw point totals. You might think, what is this? This might not be an upgrade. And then you see stuff like that and you're like, well, it's Brandon Tanev, and he's kind of a psycho, and it kind of works, and it's kind of fun. So I'm here for it. JK,
yeah, I also think that it's important to note that, and I'm a huge proponent of analytics, but you have to look at them in the right lens. And I think that,
for sure,
like Tanev in Seattle's system may not be as productive as he would have been in Winnipeg's, where he's also playing a smaller sample. So JFresh cards, for example, as an example, or per minute, and like a lot of the outputs they put there. And I think that, I would assume Tanev is going to be playing less minutes for the Jets than he was for Seattle, and he'll be more efficient in those minutes. Therefore, his analytics will go up. So that's what I would say about that. But also, I think with Brandon Tanev, I like Lyss's theory, so to speak, because there's certain characteristics, I think, that override large sample sizes, and I think that fit's important as well. And Brandon Tanev is, simply put, a gamer. And I actually wouldn't be surprised, guys, if come playoff time, he scores a few more goals than you maybe initially would have thought, because he is amazing at banging home those net front rebounds, and his line mates are very good at producing a high shot volume. So I see a combination there of a guy that could be a surprise breakout player. I see it all here. I think the stars all align with this completely.
Yeah.
Same way that, like, put it this way, speaking of fits, Brad Marchand is an impact player wherever he goes, but him on Florida versus if he went to even the Leafs, I think it's different. Because I don't think I'll be quick with this, but Toronto, they've always tried to add toughness in certain places, but it hasn't really jolted their group. Okay, it's been artificial. They've tried it in the bottom lineup, the top lineup. They've tried to, they had Bertuzzi at one point. They had guys like Reeves. They've tried it in so many ways, and it hasn't rallied the troops. Marchand going to Florida, he's one of the other rats. The dog's got another dog in the dog pound, right? So it fits in. Tanev coming here, I think, is a similar thing as well. I think it's another person that fits that mold identity with a bit more craziness.
Well, not to defend the Toronto. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. Like, fit and situation matters big time. And this fit is seamless. Tanev was here. He was here for 4 seasons and tons of playoff games. And not to defend the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it's funny how they keep adding toughness and players to jolt their lineup and their players. And year after year, we're having this conversation of like, why is Scotiabank Arena so quiet? I don't know. It's just funny. Like you bring in, I mean, that's not the player's fault. I'm just,
that was like when Reeves fought like a month
ago, and Matthews was like,
why is no one freaking out? It's like,
yeah,
I don't think they freak out about anything, man.
No. Yeah. Like,
no, they would have freaked out if they saw the Tyrell Bauer Gallant fight yesterday. Come on.
Yeah.
So violent.
Round of applause. Yeah. No kidding. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our trade deadline discussion. I think we, tied that in pretty well. We started off talking about how did the Jets do enough? They kept their first round pick. They kept $6 million in cap space in the holster. And then we talked about, Tanev and Shen and the fit in the lineup. So that was solid. Anyways, let's get to trending up, trending down. This is going to be fun because it's the post trade deadline episode. There's a lot to discuss here. So let's get right to it. Trending up or trending down, everyone's favorite segment in chat. Make sure you hit the chat room and drop your picks for trending up or trending down. We are all going to pick one player over the past week who is trending up or down for the Winnipeg Jets. While you're down there dropping your comment below, make sure you hit the like button if you're enjoying the stream. Hit that subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss every single time we go live, even on a daylight saving Sunday at 9 a.m. And obviously, Huss and Remo, they're going live 1 to 3 every single day, Monday through Friday. Trending up or trending down for us this week. So last week, these are the players we chose, and we can't choose this week. Ready? Logan Stanley was trending up, which was a great pick, I have to admit. Josh Morrissey, Morgan Barron, Alex Iafallo, Nino Niederreiter, and the power play. Those are off the board. Who wants to go first? Keep in mind that you'll be going last for trending down off of back-to-back wins. So maybe I'll go first, unless one of you
want
sorry.
Go ahead.
Nino Iafallo, what was the third one? I didn't hear the third.
The power play.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah, Connor, you go first. I'll go second.
I'll go first for trending up. I'm going to take Brandon Tanev. For the exact reason that I just brought it up. I mean, he's a new Winnipeg Jet, so we can immediately take him for trending up. But anyways, the moment that I brought up over the large sample, I think this is a seamless fit. I think it's a great depth add. I think when the trade happened, we all were like, oh, it's even an upgrade over all these players. And then you see him in the game, run through a player on the boards. The fourth line got on the board early in the first period. Brandon Tanev was like defending his teammates who he just re-met a few hours ago. This is the kind of player that's going to make an impact in the playoffs. And I really liked that move. So I'm going to go Brandon Tanev for trending up. Lyss, you're up next.
I'm going to go with Cole Perfetti for trending up this week. I think this is a guy who the Winnipeg Jets want to see do well. And I think, this is the time of year last year where we're having some questions about the guy. He's, racking up the points in the last couple of games. He and Ehlers are starting to look pretty good together. So I liked his game the last little bit, and I would love to see that translate a little bit more into power play too, the way that they were kind of producing a little bit earlier this year when it was kind of like a gut punch X2 where, if the Winnipeg Jets didn't score on the first opportunity, which didn't happen very often, they would wear you down for their first, whatever it was, 70 seconds they were out there. And then sometimes Cole Perfetti's nifty hands would come out and find Alex Iafallo or Nino Niederreiter, crash and bang. And just, I feel that coming back. I really do. I think Cole Perfetti's kind of trending in the right direction. So he gets my pick for the week.
For sure. I'm going to drop some analytics on that line. You just reminded me after Jacob's pick for trending up. But Jacob, who do you have for trending up this week?
Go first.
Yeah.
No. Okay, go on the analytics. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wrote this in my next day takeaways for Legal Curve because I've seen, the eye test has been that the second line has gotten a lot better of late. Their last 15 games at 5-on-5, they're outscoring their opponents 7-4. That's a 63% goal share. They're controlling 57% of the shot attempts, 64% of the expected goals, 59% of the scoring chances, and 60% of the high danger chances. That's in the last 15 games. I said it going into the trade deadline that the second line was hot and it was going to be really interesting to see if they add a second line center. Again, like I said, I still think that they should have, but this line as of late has given, people hope that maybe they'll be good in the playoffs. They'll be good down the stretch because their last 15 games have been awesome. And 15 games ago, roughly, was when Cole Perfetti did that whole prick comment and really elevated his game, became a better forechecker, even made some more plays defensively on top of what he was already doing defensively, which was being pretty responsible, making more plays. So that second line has been really, really solid over the last 15 games. And it only enforces your pick list for your trending up Cole Perfetti. Jacob, who you got?
I think Adam Lowry for me.
Nice.
I just think that whether it's like, him standing up, fighting, something new. That's kind of what he does.
Right.
That, it makes him a good leader and whatnot, just the timely nature of it. But I think that for Lowry, I remember very distinct memory, Connor, it was after one of the first few games when Ehlers and Lowry were together, we were talking about how many goals Lowry was on pace for at that moment. And I think it was like 20. And we were in
roughly?
like something, right? Now it's dipped a bit. And the reason I thought about that is like, okay, wow, he went a little bit without scoring, it felt like. In some ways. And, Adam Lowry doesn't need to score to be effective, but I think that when the Jets are at their best, they're getting goals from that third line. And I think that Lowry, as we all know, is a straw that stirs the drink. So I've noticed a lot more pop from Lowry. The third line as a whole has been better. I think even in the Philly game recently, the numbers may have not reflected analytically, but I thought that was one of the first games in a while we've seen them in their identity. Down low, a lot more, I don't want to say pop, but like there was prolonged periods of them, not just in the offensive zone, but playing their game there, cycling at length. And I think Lowry's the reason for that. So Lows is my guy.
Love it. Love it. Huss asked me this question after they acquired Brandon Tanev on Friday. I'm going to ask you both of it. Do you think there's any chance that we see Niederreiter, Lowry, Tanev on that third line?
Yes.
Yeah? You think
for
so?
Sure. I think that's in Arneal's mind for sure. Like, I think
I'd love it. Like, fully lean into that identity. Let's do it. Let's run through someone's face. Let's do it.
It's also like, I think Appleton, I almost want, if you want to, yes, I agree, but also jugular thinking, Tanev, Lowry, I follow, in my opinion.
Ooh. Wow. Nice.
That's like hard line to play against.
Oh my God. Yeah. Big time. All right. Anything else? No, we're done trending up. Jacob, you're back up for trending down. Snake draft. Trending down. Who you got?
This is tough. I'm going to say trending down would be Colin Miller. I just think that he's trending down because his spot in the lineup is kind of redundant now. Like, I know I said about 20 minutes ago, I don't know who's going to be game one of the playoffs. I'm just saying, because that is true, there's a large body of work. But as of right now, as we speak on this glorious Sunday morning, things are trending down for Colin Miller because, to be honest, what he brings and his puck moving ability, they already got enough of. They want a big guy that can clear out the net. Luke Shen brings that. So for now, at least, he's got the upper hand on Colin Miller. So trending down for me.
Okay. That's a good pick. Lyss, trending down. Who's your pick?
I have a feeling where she's going.
Yeah, this is a bit unfair. But I'm going to go trending down with bit derivative off the board, Rasmus Kupari. I was going to go David Gustafson, but I'm going to go Rasmus Kupari.
I'm going to say
the guy
Hainola.
He's hurt though, Kupari.
No, I know that, but that's why I'm going with Kupari is that, like there was a
Connor's
deliberate,
rattled.
conscious decision to not put David Gustafson in the lineup earlier this week. So I think it kind of is like it goes without saying that's a guy who's been in and out of the lineup for much of the year. Rasmus Kupari is a guy who basically all year has been only scratched if it's like you just need to get a guy a game in kind of thing. It's like,
Right.
hey, sorry, buddy, like you're just the scapegoat here, whatever. I genuinely think there's going to be deliberate decision making to keep him out of the lineup now that Brandon Tanev has been added to this group. I think this is a guy who, even when he is healthy and comes back from this injury that he's dealing with right now, I don't like his odds of spending a lot of time in this lineup into the playoffs. And I agree, disagree with that, whatever, jury's still out. Like we'll have to see, kind of take a look at that. I'm not the biggest Rasmus Kupari defender on planet Earth or anything like that. But I do think that he's been better this year than he was last year. But I think in terms of just, this is more of a situational trending down than it is performance, but Rasmus Kupari gets my pick for the week.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, you explained that very well, because this is what I was worried about. How dare Kupari get concussed?
Yeah,
Trending down, he got hurt. Sucks to suck. No.
Yeah.
You
Stay on your feet,
outlined
bud.
that. Yeah. No,
Keep your head up. Come on.
Yeah, let's go. No, you outlined that well. My trending down, and I know the points have been there the last two games for the top line, but I'm gonna say Mark Scheifele. I think that line is spending too much time in their own end right now. They had a really good game against Philly. I know Velarde had 3 assists in that game. And I know against New Jersey, Scheifele had a really nice entry to Kyle Connor's goal and things like that. Like they're still generating, but offensively is not where I'm having the issue with the top line right now. I feel like ever since the break, the bad version of the top line has popped up a little bit more, where they're turning the puck over in their own zone. They have these long extended shifts. They're taking long extended shifts. Like they have chances to get off the ice and they just don't go. So I'm going to go with Mark Scheifele, even though maybe the points will be there. I haven't checked Mark Scheifele's game log of the last 3 games. But from what my eyes are telling me, I'm going to go with Mark Scheifele for trending down. That's an ultimate eye test pick, but I'm sticking by it. Anything else on trending up, trending down, or should we hop right into the burning questions? Right into the burning questions. Let's do it. This is now one burning question. So don't go anywhere if you're in the chat already. This is the segment where we ask you guys, the chat, to drop a question for us down below, and we are going to rapid fire answer them. Any question you want regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the trade deadline, the games as of late, any players you think are playing well and want our thoughts on, any scenarios maybe in the lineup that you want to ask about, we are game. So ask away in the comments, down below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe. We really appreciate it. My one burning question to you both is, how excited are you for this game Friday, Jets versus Stars? We have a game today, actually. Someone said that in chat, and I was like, I'm so lost.
Yeah, I just got the PR notification. I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
They should be playing against they will be playing against number 96 on the Carolina Hurricanes, but it is not Mikko Rantanen. It is Jack Roslovic, who is one Rolex richer. So
one Rolex richer. Yeah.
What a great move for Jack Roslovic. Like
savvy move. Guy comes in without an extension. You're like, yeah, I want a Rolex for my number, and then ship him out. Love it.
But I'm excited for today's game. I'm excited for Friday's game. I think it'll be really nice to see on Friday a little bit of a lower stakes primer as to what this Colorado or Jeepers Creepers, this Dallas Stars team is going to look like. I think them without Logan Stankoven is I really like that player. I think it's going to be fun to see him today, probably with the Carolina Hurricanes. But watching what that newly configured top 9 for the Dallas Stars looks like, I believe they will just continue to get better and, develop some chemistry and all that. This will be an early stages look. I totally understand that, but it's a fun team, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare against the Winnipeg Jets, because the Jets have had some decent luck against them this year. So it'll be a good game. I'm really looking forward to that and watching that one at the Canada Life Center with you folks.
Absolutely. And I will say, just on today's game, every time the Jets play on the road against the Hurricanes for the next 5-10 years, I'm going to think of their comeback win last year against the Hurricanes on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Where they were down 3-1.
I was at Underdogs with a bunch of people from Jets Twitter. What a time.
Oh my goodness. They were down 3-1 in the third and just rattled off 4 unanswered goals. That was one of my favorite games of last year.
That was an awesome game.
And Scheifele's goal to tie it was sick. And he hit this huge celly. Dan Robertson added so much emotion to that game too. called a great game. So I will never forget that game. And the Jets never play the Hurricanes on the road like once a year, right? So it's easy to remember that one. Is Luke Shen playing today? Adam asks. No, Ken Wiebe was reporting that he's going to join the team in Winnipeg, I guess, after today's game or Monday. So no Luke Shen in the lineup today. I would expect Brandon Tanev to be right back in his usual role because he played pretty well.
I think Luke Shen probably needed a day or two to orient himself because I think he joined the Penguins.
Did he go to Pittsburgh?
I think he did.
I believe, did.
Well, the initial report was that Saravalli was like, I don't think there's any plans for I don't think it was Saravalli. I won't attach a name to this report, but it was like, I don't think the Penguins are looking to flip Shen, at least in the interim. They like what he brings to the lineup, and then they flipped him. So maybe he was told, like, hey, unless an offer comes across. I thought that was a bit.
I saw that tweet too.
I actually do believe Shen did travel with the Penguins. So he joins a new team. He's there. Then, I mean, hopefully he didn't ship anything.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. The Jets were probably like, you know what, dude, don't worry about it. Join us in Winnipeg. It's been a few days for you. We're going to start with a commenter retro last week on WST Sunday Live. Doesn't usually join us during the streams, but joins us after. So wanted to get their burning question in a week early. They ask, are you happy/content with the trade deadline moves for the Winnipeg Jets? I will say that in a vacuum, I like the moves. Could they have done more? Absolutely. But this core...
Answer the question.
Yes, I'm happy. No, I'm not. I don't know.
Hey, I like amazing. That's why I did that to you.
I like the moves, but okay, I'm gonna say no. And I'm not gonna explain myself. Who's next?
Yeah, that's the beauty of one burning question. I'm also gonna say if I have to choose yes or no, I'm gonna choose no as well.
Okay, Jacob.
Me as well. But I would speak for all of us that we all like the moves. We just think that it's not enough.
Answer the question.
And we are physically incapable of just yes, no, whatever. Like there's depth to the conversation. Yeah, exactly. But if you miss the last hour and 6 minutes of the show, you'll know. Yeah, we're not satisfied.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But we understand why.
We understand. Yeah. We put our brains together. We're so smart, guys. We're so smart. I will say that this is still a really good team. You know, even if we're not content with the moves, this team can absolutely still win the Stanley Cup. They're still one of the best teams in the league. They're literally number one in the league coming into today's game. So it's going to be a fun ride down the stretch, and these players will have an impact that they added. Darth Skater, shout out for the super chat earlier, asks, with the final stretch being as critical as it looks to be for standings, will the Jets let Salamonson play just to, quote, get a feel for some NHL action? I'll maybe extend this to any of the prospects or Moose players, not just Elias Salamonson, but what do you guys think?
Well, I assume that the last game of the year will be a dress rehearsal.
Maybe. Yeah. Like
one
game.
Dress rehearsal. Sorry. No. Like, that's the wrong term. Dress rehearsal means that they would all be playing.
Preseason game.
Yeah. I assume that it would be like a couple guys are going to be rested. So
what they did last year with Chipperkov and whatever it was.
It'd be Brad, Elias. I don't know who else would be getting a cookie there. Like maybe Heinola. I don't know. Like I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna dress the guys in the bit. So for that reason, I do think Salamonson will be the guy to get that. I think
he's not playing playoff games though. I can tell you, Darth Skater, he's not playing playoff games. No. So it would just be for the same purposes that it would be the exact same thing with the Lambert Chipperkov. It's like, here you go, enjoy, congrats, good year, good job, buddy. We're proud of you. See you at training camp.
Totally. Yeah. Jay Miller comms tonight. I am unsure, but I would expect Hellebuck. I don't know what the confirmation was, but I would expect Hellebuck for tonight and Tuesday and Friday, to be honest, the next 3 games, especially with 2 days off between. Or no, it's Sunday. It's not Saturday. So I would still expect Hellebuck for that Tuesday and Friday games and today as well. Kenny's water bottle. This is a really great question. Biggest difference maker in terms of potential playoff success for this year, Cole Perfetti or Nikolai Ehlers? Great question.
It's a great question. I got Kenny's water bottle. You hydrated me with that question. That was good.
Okay,
who wants to go first?
Go.
I think you do.
Okay,
go ahead.
Ehlers. Because Nikolai Ehlers playing at the improved level we've seen this year is a game-changing course of events for the Winnipeg Jets, that second line. Nikolai Ehlers has not had a good playoff, has not had a good string of playoffs really ever.
No.
So that's what the Winnipeg Jets need to have a long run. I'd love to hear you guys take the other side of the argument because I can make one just as
I was about to do that. I was like, whatever you pick,
like,
I'll just pick the opposite
I'm all
because I
here
like
for
this
the
question.
other. I'm here for the other side of it, but I actually firmly believe you asked me to pick one. It is Nikolai Ehlers because we're talking about a $6 million player and then a kid on a bridge deal that's, coming to his own. Ehlers is a point per game player right now in a contract year. This is a guy for the Jets that needs to be at his best self. Okay, Perfetti at his best self. We don't even really know what he can get to. It's too much unknown for me. You got to see Ehlers at the top of his game. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with the opposite then because I totally agree with everything you're saying. But I think the difference between him and Cole Perfetti is that Nikolai Ehlers is a guy that gets circled by opposing teams. Is a guy who is, if you want to talk about eye test, my least favorite term on planet Earth. We know that humans, when they watch hockey and the observations that they make, your eyes cling to fast players, your eyes cling to slow players, they cling to big players, they cling to guys who are a little bit different looking. And Nikolai Ehlers is a guy that you watch the Jets and you're like, whoa. What is that kind of thing? And this is a guy that I think is going to attract a little bit more attention, specifically because he plays on a line with guys where he is the guy. If he was playing with Kyle Connor, team circle Kyle Connor, we know that they're like, that's the guy, whatever. He is when, he's deployed at 5-on-5 on the ice. That's the guy that everyone's going to be looking at, which I think could possibly open up a little bit more space for Cole Perfetti to kind of fly under the radar. So I think that there's some potential there for him to be kind of like a little bit of like a sneaky playoff guy. And yeah, like I think it's a great question. And I hope the answer is both, that they both have, they're both great difference makers. But I think Cole Perfetti is a bit more of a like kind of dark horse kind of difference maker, if that makes sense.
For sure. I'm going to take Cole Perfetti as well because I think the best version of the Jets' second line is when Cole Perfetti's playing the best hockey that we've seen him play, like the last 15 games. Cole Perfetti's playing the best hockey of his career right now, and that second line is 60% in goal share, expected goal share, whatever analytic you want to look at. Nikolai Ehlers on the top power play unit is going to get points in the playoffs. Like, I'm not worried about his point total. I think that power play is going to strike maybe once a game, on average in the playoffs, maybe once every 4 opportunities, maybe 25% in the playoffs. So I think that Nikolai Ehlers will get his points, and he can't do it all by himself on that second line. The Jets didn't add a second line center. So Vladimir Meskov is the 2C going into the playoffs. Cole Perfetti's there. Cole Perfetti is responsible for kind of elevating that line. Nikolai Ehlers, we know that he's going to perform. I know his playoff totals aren't that great, but I just think the best version of the second line is when Cole Perfetti is playing at his best rather than Nikolai Ehlers. And Nikolai Ehlers, without a second line center, is really going to have to do a lot on that line, but Cole Perfetti can help him out in a big way. So I'm going to say Cole Perfetti, but I liked our answers for both. And I think they're maybe 1 and 2 for like biggest difference maker in terms of like, or in terms of like polarizing, not biggest impact. Yeah, like X Factor, things of that nature. Let's move on here. There was a question from T. Will here. Do you think the Luke Schenn trade was an effort to grease the wheels on a Braden Schenn trade?
No.
Either of you think it was a precursor? No? You don't think so?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I think the Jets were interested in it or like would have heard it out. I don't think they made the trade to further that discussion, though.
I think the Jets, among every team in the league, was intrigued by the idea, but I think everybody said when they saw the price, this is ridiculous.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah,
and
I agree.
I don't fault Doug Armstrong for it. Like, he's got the price he wants, and he says if it's for anything less, I'm not moving my captain. Fair enough. Like, I love what St. Louis is doing, but the other side of the coin, I don't think, guys, Braden Schenn is not what he used to be right now, and it doesn't mean he couldn't bring value to this lineup, but the price that was wanted there is absurd. So,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. That's a good answer. C-Mac asks. C-Mac asks, is Luke Schenn fast enough or experienced enough to not get exposed in the playoffs? What do you guys think?
Well, it's a loaded question. I mean, if you're saying...
I guess Nathan McKinnon, no. Like, obviously not.
I'm going to assume the question is he fast enough or just experienced enough to not get exposed? I assume that means in the way we watched the Jets defenseman get exposed last year in a plethora of ways.
Yes.
I don't know, like off the rush, in front of the net.
Yes.
I think that Luke Schenn has a lot of intangibles where he will be able to play his game in the playoffs. Now, his game is a pretty meat and potatoes, defensively oriented style. So if you're asking me how he's going to do off the rush, I think he's a pretty good defender with his stick. Now, he's not the fastest person, so in a track meet, he's maybe not the guy you want there, but I do think he has the attributes to stay afloat for, again, his game. So his game is best for a third pairing. If he's out there against McKinnon, of course, you don't want that, or against a Mikko Rantanen. But I think for what he does, I think he'll be fine. But I really, my jury's out until I see Luke Schenn playing for this team and in this environment.
Agreed. Yeah, I want to see
had a better year
sure.
this year than previous years with Nashville. He has.
And I sent you both in our chat his microstat J Fresh card. It's pretty interesting. Like, it's pretty like I'm interested. I'm intrigued here of what Luke Schenn's going to look like on the Jets' third pair. Another question coming in here. Do you think the NHL should bring the salary cap limit into the playoffs?
No. I am one of those like new generation, like maybe it's my Gen Z showing, but like I love the cap, shenanigans and everyone just doing what they can to bring the most good players into their team and make it competitive. I love it. Give me more of that. I really enjoy it. I think it's the more good players you can watch play in the playoffs, the better. I'm on board.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were going to say it.
Yeah.
Never mind. I misunderstood you. Sorry, Les.
Yeah.
Good take.
All right.
Sorry, good take. My bad.
Whoa. Yeah. Put the pitchfork down. Rat River Rebel asks, what is the value of Brad Lambert if the Jets need a Stanley Cup caliber 2C over the next 3 years? So many talk down on Vlad, but what would you want a rookie in that spot?
I'm going first, Les.
Damn it.
I've talked about this with a lot of people around the game and for various organizations, and my opinion hasn't changed. I think Brad Lambert's a winger.
It's a moot point. He's not a center.
I don't think he's a center, and I actually don't think that. Oh, here we go. What's the line for Lambert?
Same question. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Center wing. Yeah.
So here's what I would say about the situation. I'll be quick. I think that the player and the team see a value in him being a center. Keyword there, see value. Like, I think that in a perfect world, if he could do that, he'd be a good center. Guys, being center in the National Hockey League is very hard. It's not for everyone. Every forward on the Jets practically grew up playing center. Okay, so except for Kyle Connor. So everyone's a center until you're not, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, I think that it's good that he's learning that side of the game away from the puck and certain things to have. But you saw it with Jack Roslovic. You saw it, and he's center now. But I mean, with the Jets, he was more of a winger. You saw it with Cole Perfetti now, who's going to be a winger. It's not for everyone, and I think that Brad Lambert's speed down the wing will be better utilized as stops and starts. I'm with all the people that think having that down the middle would be just glorious, and having that come out from under. I just think when it's all said and done, he'll be a winger. Gut feel.
Okay. Lyss? Agreed? Disagree with that?
I agree. Yeah. And Jacob and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, hence why we both kind of were chomping at the bit to answer this question, because I also think that Brad Lambert is more of a winger. And I have so many questions about the structure of what being a top six center looks like for the Winnipeg Jets, because I don't know. Structure is a bit of a loose term. It's Blake Wheeler or Blake. Whoa, pull. It's
Blake Wheeler.
It's Mark Scheifele and Guy, right? Like, we talked about this, and this is something that we could make a video documentary on, is just the concept of the second line center in the Winnipeg Jets organization and why that's been such a struggle to fill, whether it be internally or externally, for however long that they've been in this competitive window. But that's not a recipe for success to bring in a volatile prospect, in my opinion, right? So all of the things that Jacob said based on the player's skill set, coupled with the fact that this is just like a weird kind of situation where the center spot has not been easily filled and guys haven't walked into that role and seen success. Like, I think that this is a guy who someone in the chat made a comment, like, probably fills Nikolai Ehlers' spot as opposed to the second line center spot, if we want to talk about what the fit looks like going down the stretch. I like Brad Lambert a lot. I think he's a ton of fun. It'll be very interesting to see what the next little bit looks like, but I would not be surprised if this is a guy who makes a career out of being an NHL winger.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna agree with you both. I'd like to think that he's more of a winger as well, and you guys outlined it perfectly, so I'm not gonna add any more. It was hilarious. I asked Remus, they hit their 1000th show on Wednesday. How many of those do you think they spent talking about the Winnipeg Jets second line center? If you had to guess.
Great question.
All
That's
1,000.
So funny. Well, yeah, because Pierre-Luc Dubois was a godsend, right?
Oh my God, that's so
we had
funny.
it figured out. We had it figured out here.
What was the first show? 2021.
March 8th, 2021.
International
So
Women's
their first
Hilarious.
couple shows were like the playoffs, the bubble playoffs, where like Mark Scheifele hit Jake Evans, and then
Right.
the Jets
Right.
swept the Oilers.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so those were like, that was their first couple months of shows there. So yeah, it's been
what
a lot.
Time.
It's
what
been a lot.
time.
It's been a lot
Oh
of those
my
1,000
gosh.
episodes they've talked about who's
I
going to
feel
be
like I've
the
lived
Jets'
1,000
second
lives since Patrick Laine was traded in January of 2021. Like,
You've lived 1,000 WST episodes.
yeah,
That's what you've done.
literally.
Amen.
There you go. All right. Well, that's going to do it for one burning question. Thank you, everyone. We got so many great questions today that we were unable to get to. We'll try and get to more next week, try and keep it more rapid fire. But there were some awesome questions in the chat today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If you're enjoying the stream, like we said earlier, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss every single time we go live Sunday morning, 9 a.m., even from Grand Forks, even on daylight savings. We'll be live at 9 a.m. here on WST Sunday Live. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to say before we head out for today and get on to this Jets game at 4 o'clock?
If you want to do a doubleheader, there's a Moose game at 1 o'clock at Canada Life
Moose game at
Center.
1.
So
One, I thought it
lock
said 2.
in. But I think today's at 1.
Oh,
I think.
I forgot.
Maybe not.
You reminded me, Lyss, with the Moose. Yesterday was the Woman in Sport game, and you were there,
Yeah.
got to talk to some of the people. Share your experience. I forgot to plug that off the top.
games at 2.
Yeah, no, I is at 2 today. My calendar invite is wrong then.
Daylight
I
savings
uploaded
or
my
something.
calendar. Oh yeah, my calendar's all screwed up
there
because of
you
daylight
go.
savings. That's why. It is at 2 today. You're correct.
Back to what
no,
you were
it-
saying.
Yesterday it was so fun. I got to go to talk to some of the girls in the Manitoba Moose Women in Sport Job Shadow program. It's a program that they've been running for 4 years. It's a bit of a passion project for some of the folks over at the Moose team. Got to shout out Raquel Payne and Colin Peterson and Cassidy McGowan, the folks that kind of put a ton of work into that program. And it was really cool to meet the new group of girls that was kind of coming through and getting to experience what I experienced last year because I was kind of an alum of the program. And it was a very full circle moment because at this time last year when I was doing the program, I had just a couple months before been laid off from my first kind of sports media gig, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I remember, immediately after that being like, okay, you know what? I know that I love this and I have always loved this and it's okay for me to love this and there is opportunity for me to love this. And I actually remember sending an email the day I got home from that to my local minor hockey association being like, I want to come coach with you. And today we have the possibility of winning our league championship, the girls that I'm coaching. So it's just lots of kind of full circle moments in the last couple of days. And it's a program that I feel is really well run. I believe very strongly. And so it was really nice to get a chance to kind of talk to those girls yesterday as a bit of an alum of kind of the program and say, this time last year I did this program and went into an NHL press box for the first time. And now part of my job is getting to come to this, whenever there's stuff to talk about, which is a pretty cool thing to say. So I'm feeling very, very grateful, very, very humbled for that. So it was really nice to see everyone.
Absolutely. I love it. And I'll let you guys both plug some work on the way out. So Jacob, I'll start with you. What have you got cooking at sportsnet.ca in the coming days as the Jets schedule picks up a little bit here?
Nothing I want to tip my hat on. Just a couple files, usually after games around that. But looking to do some bigger picture stuff as we get down the stretch here. And I'll give a pucks in deep journalism-esque answer here and leave it at that.
Wow. See how it is. Lyss, what have you
Get
got
on sportsnet.ca though. That's the overarching thing.
Stay glued to Jacob's Twitter at JL Stoller. Sportsnet.ca, some of the best Jets coverage you'll read. So stay tuned to that. Lyss, what have you got cooking at Chell Chit Chat? I know you had a new episode yesterday, I believe.
Yeah. I dropped a new featuring a guest from Sportsnet.ca, Kaylee Sibley, the social media manager, community manager over at Sportsnet. We jumped on and talked about kind of how you can, leverage your own social media channels to build some meaningful content and tell some great stories because social is one of the most powerful tools that exists right now, especially in the sports media landscape. So that was a really fun one. And I have another episode dropping on Wednesday. This one, guys, everyone hold your horses. It's about the Manitoba Moose. Are you surprised? It's going to be a really fun one coming out this Wednesday. I'm really excited about that one. And kind of this project has been lots of fun for me. So make sure you check that out. It's on YouTube, podcasts, all that fun stuff. And then learn a little bit about kind of what we got cooking over there.
Absolutely. Well, stay tuned to Chell Chit Chat. Stay tuned to sportsnet.ca. And stay tuned to this Jets game today at 4 o'clock against the Carolina Hurricanes. Should be a great game. Carolina is still one of the best teams in the East. So thank you, everyone, for all the kind comments. I see everyone saying it was a great show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you all next Sunday on the next edition of WST Sunday Live. Another game day edition next Sunday. but we'll be mainly talking about that Friday night game between the Jets and the Stars. That'll be a really, really fun show. So join us next Sunday. We appreciate you all coming by. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the game today, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone. Peace.